So one of the things that you got to be careful of is to mark exactly what's given to you. So PT is congruent to GD. PT is congruent to GD. That's a side, right? And then PE is congruent to DO. PE is congruent to DO. That's another side. And then angle D is 57. Angle D is 57. That is all the information you are given. Now, some of you correctly thought that if the 28 is opposite the 2 tick mark, then this is also a 28, right? So I've got an angle here and I've got an angle here. So this could be angle, side, angle, or it could be side, angle, side, side, angle, side. Either one of those. But because you're given an angle here, it can't be side, side, side. It could also be angle, angle, side. So you could choose that one, but it cannot be HL because there's no 90 degrees. You have to have a 90-degree angle for HL. Okay. So it can be any of those three in the middle with one angle, two angles, one side or two sides. I think slide 4 looked pretty good. Slide 5, I want to talk about this one real fast. So YK is congruent to TN. YK is congruent to TN, that's a side. And then YU is congruent to TI. YU is congruent to TI, that's another side. What do these little upside down T's mean? Perpendicular. And what does perpendicular mean? 90 degrees? Question mark? So I can put 90 degrees here. These are not sides. Those, my friends, are angles. So I've got an angle and a side and a side, and I've got an angle and a side and a side. Is that a thing? It is not a thing, but this is a special right triangle because this is the hypotenuse and this is a leg, right? The legs make the right angle and the hypotenuse is opposite it. This is hypotenuse leg. And you have to know that these symbols mean perpendicular, which implies 90 degrees. Okay, questions on that? Okay. That one's good. That one was good. That one was good. Also good. Let's look at this one. OS bisects PR. So OS is the knife that cuts PR in half. Okay. OS is the knife that cuts PR in half. That's how you mark that. Okay. OS is the knife that cuts PR in half. So PQ is going to be congruent to QR. That's the so what after that statement. Then I've got this guy over here. What does this little double L mean? Not perpendicular, but parallel. So OP, and we mark parallel with arrows, is parallel to RS. So if I highlight that and make my Z, I've got angle S is congruent to angle O. Angle S is congruent to angle O. I can go the other direction from S to R this way. And then angle R is congruent to angle P. Angle R is congruent to angle P. Those are alternate interior angles, right? So now what do I have marked? I've got an angle and an angle and a side. You can also mark these vertical angles because you can always mark vertical angles. So it also could be angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. But it's those parallel lines that are the tricky, tricky, tricky ones. You can mark those alternate interior angles. Okay? It's going to be important as we go on. You guys stop me if there's another one you want to talk about. I got 2 more. 12. So what can I mark here? You guys talk me through it. What does this mean? Parallel. How do I mark parallel? With arrows or tick marks? Arrows, thank you. And that implies alternate interior angles. So which angles are congruent because those parallel lines? Angle NKM is congruent to what? NKM is congruent to what? What's the other angle in that Z? LMK, question mark? I need you guys to talk to me today. Yes? We good with that? Then we've got this one over here. NM is congruent to KL. NM is congruent to KL, so that's a side. NM is congruent to KL. So I've got an angle up here, and then I've got a side here. What else can I mark? Because I can always mark it. Starts with an R. Reflexive side. What is the reflexive side? What side occupies the same space in the N triangle as the L triangle? Where do they meet? Where are they adjacent? KM for sure. So I've got a side at KM. This kind of looks like in the order that we did it, we've got an ASS triangle, which we know we can't do. But if we look here, we've got angle, side, side. So can I do this one? Cannot. We would need one more piece of information somewhere about that triangle, whether it's another side or another angle. Okay. The next one I wanted to talk about was 16. So if you want to talk about 13 or 14 or 15, let me know. But I wanted to talk about 16. So what can I mark because X is the midpoint of VY? X is the midpoint of VY. What's the so what there? Because I know the definition of a midpoint. Absolutely. So because of the definition of midpoint, I can make Vx congruent to XY, right? Then I go to the next thing, and I've got XW is parallel to YZ. XW is parallel to YZ. So what we've been doing is those alternate interior angles, right? Those two angles are congruent, but that doesn't help me very much because this one is not inside a triangle. What we haven't talked about much is this. Let me erase that for a second. If I've got an angle up here on the top of the parallel line, right? And I slide it down a slide to this parallel line, are those corresponding? They are. Corresponding angles are congruent. So angle VXW is congruent to angle XYZ. Those are those pink angles. And then we've got one more piece of information, I think. Let's go red. YXZ, YXZ, this angle up here, is congruent to XVW. XVW, this angle up here. So if I look in one triangle, I'm just going to look in this triangle down here. I've got an angle and then a side and then another angle. And I've got that same angle, that same side, and that same angle. So this one, guys, is going to be here. These get tough, and usually we practice these for a week, not 2 days. Okay? Do your best. Use the vocabulary that you know. Okay? Was that helpful? A little bit? Kind of, sort of, maybe?